I remember as a child the moment when I first understood myself to be truly an individual. For me, it came one day when I was watching my parents and I had a flash of understanding that they had a relationship that existed before and beyond my own living. My distinct thought was, they chose each other in this world, and while they chose to have a child, they didn't choose me specifically. That there's something, even in my parents, that I'll never be a part of. That was the thought. And I would certainly nuance that thought and that understanding now as an adult, refining in my mind what it means to choose partnership and to be an individual. But in that moment, the thought brought me clarity. I was born and placed into my mother's arms, but I was born alone. And when I die, I will die alone. Not necessarily without companions or presence, but fundamentally, as individuals, we possess an internal integrity that nothing can interrupt. Not really, even through death or violence, even through insecurity and misery. We are the only truly constant companion we have on some level. And it was only through reflecting on my relationship with my parents and observing them as humans in their own right in this world that little me had this epiphany. And as it came, I wasn't sad. I think that's important. I wasn't sad. It didn't cause me to doubt my parents' love for me, and I didn't feel lonely, not really. I just felt like I'd understood something about what it means to be human. It was a clear and abiding shift in my own development into a new understanding of reality, but it was also something of a fleeting feeling, almost impossible to hang on to meaningfully from moment to moment. It was the same kind or quality of feeling that I get when I consider the vastness of time and space that the Hubble Deep Field images offer to us. A deep awareness of my own complexity and individuality, and of my finitude and my place in the collective that together stands at the forming edge of the universe. These truths are hard to hold on to because of their sheer enormity. I understood in that moment that sometimes I would be on the outside of things, but that didn't mean I was isolated. I understood that sometimes I would not know myself for a while, but that I could always come back to myself. The understanding was that each of us is a being with unique and internal integrity, but a being that exists in relation with others. Porrigo Tuama in that poem reminds us of this, that poem titled, How to Belong, Scratch That, How to Be Alone. He says, there will be a party where you'll feel like nobody is paying you attention, and there will be a party where attention's all you'll get. And again, there will be a day, a decade, where you won't fit in with your body, even though you're in the only body you're in. We humans exist in these singular bodies of ours as singular selves, braced on the edge of our understanding of time and space. And we exist alone, but we also exist as part of something far larger beyond our knowing. And we are in constant interaction with other bodies, other minds and hearts, souls, if that's a word you like. We are indeed our own most constant companion, but we are constantly confronted with the truths and lives of others. And in reality, it is only through those interactions, those moments of finding kindred spirits and being asked to stretch into difference, it is only through being with others in a myriad of ways that we come to truly know ourselves. If knowing ourselves with clarity so that we might live authentically and with meaning is the goal, then being in relationship, in community, searching the hearts of others, truly listening, truly reflecting, is the means to that end. On Friday night, I went to see the Broadway show Trouble in Mind. The show was penned by Alice Childress, a Black female playwright from the mid-20th century. Trouble in Mind opened off-Broadway in 1955, and after 91 performances, it was announced that it would move to Broadway. Last night, by way of introducing the show, an announcer shared with the audience that when that move to Broadway was announced, Childress was asked to tone down the show for the Broadway audience, and she refused. So the show never ran. And now, 66 years later, the show has finally been staged at the Roundabout Theater. It is a play within a play set in the 1950s, and it begins with the lead character, Willetta Mayer, showing up for rehearsals of a major show that will feature Black actors. Willetta is an experienced, confident Black actress, and when John, the young Black male lead of the show within the show, arrives, Willetta begins to dispense some advice on how to get by in the white world of theater. Laugh when the white male director makes a joke, she says. Don't give your opinion about the play because no one really cares. And she goes on. The show within the play is called Chaos in Belleville, and ostensibly it delivers an anti-lynching message as it explores events in a small southern rural town where the young Black folks are attempting to participate in the elections by voting. As the rehearsals continue and we watch the characters work out their characters, and the condescending, barely veiled racist and misogynist aggression of the director becomes more clear. And as it becomes more clear that the content of Chaos in Belleville works to underscore white saviorism and to continue to perpetuate the idea that Black folks have to earn safety and fair treatment, Willetta eventually can't help but speak up, breaking all the rules about getting by in the industry that she had imparted to John at the top of the show. The show is as relevant right now as it was when staged off-Broadway in 1955, and it is a painful, searing indictment of racial injustice, not only in the world of theater, but in the whole of our society. And as we watched, I found myself also paying attention to the reactions of the audience around us, a racially diverse group. From the beginning of the show, I found myself uncomfortable with the moments when other white audience goers would laugh at lines that exposed deeply embedded racism and misogyny. The show is funny, without question, but the humor is often cutting, designed to make you look at yourself in ways that perhaps you don't want to. And as the play continued and the mood shifted from the humorous to the more serious, as one character, Sheldon, delivers a monologue that recounts a lynching he witnessed as a child, the laughter of the white audience grew thinner and the affirmative vocalizations of the Black folks in the audience grew potent, urgent. My theater-going companion has a history in theater and shared with me some things I didn't know about theories of playwriting and production. One of the central debates, he told me, in the modern creation of theater is around how a play is meant to impact its audience. Aristotle's Poetics for centuries defined playwrights' understanding of the purpose of their works, and it teaches that a tragic play is meant to carry its audience through a series of emotional steps. According to Aristotle, effective tragedy leads us to identify with a character, seeing them as a mirror for ourselves, as we learn their flaws and thus our own. As the tragedy continues, we witness their downfall as their flaws control them, and through their climactic fall, we are changed. We, the audience, can separate ourselves from the character as they fall prey to themselves, and supposedly, ideally, we emerge from that emotional experience better people, more aware of our own flaws, more prepared to be on guard against them. But in the last half century or so, the question has arisen whether or not Aristotle was correct at all. Does an audience move through the experience of a tragic fall like that of Hamlet and find themselves truly changed by the image they have seen in the mirror that is the play? Do they truly leave ready to engage with their world differently? Or does the audience, in fact, use the emotional catharsis of the show to walk out self-satisfied, righteous, unchanged, because they've seen not so much a mirror, but a projection? And the character has become something of a scapegoat onto which the audience can place their own sins and walk away unharmed and unaltered. The idea, which was new to me, that theater, in an effort to change its audience, might instead be relieving them of a burden by allowing a transference of guilt and pain, is fascinating. And it brings theater actually into the realm of religious experience, which is a reasonable notion, given the clear historical links between religious dramas like passion plays and the development of theater in Western Christendom. But so if Aristotle was wrong, or perhaps if theater developed alongside religious ideas in such a way that it evolved away from his fundamental understanding, then for centuries what audiences have been offered is not an experience that actually leads to real change, but instead an experience of almost ritual-like release. The notion of the scapegoat, a literal goat onto which the sins of a community are placed, and then that goat is sent out into the wild, comes from Leviticus in the Torah. In a discussion of the rituals of Yom Kippur, we learn of this ritual transference of guilt onto the goat and how to purge the community, the goat is sent away. And though Christian theological traditions go to great lengths to explain all the ways that he is not, we might see Jesus as a form of scapegoat. Certainly, as the narrative is told, he's a voluntary one in contrast to the goat of Leviticus, but nonetheless, we can understand Jesus as an entity who takes on the burden of others' sins in order to release those people. Now, we Unitarian Universalists, even those among our number who identify as Christians, primarily reject the idea that Jesus' death was a required sacrifice in order to purge humanity of some imagined sin. The theological heresy from which our tradition was born asked individuals not to push aside their individual responsibility, nor their responsibility to their communities, but to see themselves in their context, in time and place, and to see themselves clearly. It is nothing less than we ask of ourselves and each other today as Unitarian Universalists. We ask that we live intentionally in this world we share, looking into the mirror of relationship and community and reflecting back to each other truths that will help us grow and change, living and working for the good of all. In the show within the show, by the third act, the young male character played by John is being hunted by the white folks of the town because he dared to vote in the election. As the cast rehearses the climactic scene, we learn that as Chaos in Belleville is written, with the words that are on the page of the script, the mother of this young man being hunted by a lynch mob is supposed to urge her son to give himself up. Willetta, who plays that mother, declares that this is inconsistent with the earlier acts and with the character she has come to know as she has rehearsed this play. Besides, Willetta asks, what mother would, given the chance to get her son to safety, convince her innocent son, or even her guilty son, to walk straight into the arms of injustice, a move that will certainly end with his death? The director in the show insists that this move will make the characters more sympathetic and that as a result, the primarily white theater goers will be moved by the son's innocence and the mother's pain and will come to a better understanding of why lynching is immoral, or at least immoral if the person's innocent. The black son must be given up, sacrificed in order to change the white audience. We might say, in some sense, in order to save the souls of the white audience. But Willetta rejects this, rejects wholly the idea that her character, this loving mother, should have to give up her child so others can understand the value of a black life. Embedded in this show from 1955, not only can we see a rejection of the kind of theater that invites its audience into scapegoating so they can walk out feeling freed of their own burdens and imagining themselves changed, but also we can see a rejection of a theology that allows us to shift the burden of our self-knowledge and our self-growth from ourselves onto another. It rejects the idea that we can escape through catharsis or externalization, the need to confront the truth of the world we live in and the truths of our deepest hearts. Willetta changes over the course of the show, becoming more convinced that her silence, while it might serve her place in the industry, does not serve her place in the human family or serve the communities of which she is a part. Willetta, through her interaction with John, with the director, and with the character as she develops it, comes to recognize the value and power of speaking her truth even when it comes at personal risk. The show follows Willetta's deepening self-understanding, an understanding of who she is in time and space. And in part, the door is open to this by the white male director who pushes her to examine the motivation of her character, even as he then requires her to play an outdated caricature of a Black woman. He opens this door because he thinks he's enlightened and justice-seeking and desires the truth, but he's unprepared for what it truly means when Willetta steps into this new discovery of herself. And so as Willetta objects passionately to the ending of the play as it is written, his anger and prejudice show themselves explicitly. There's a climactic scene of anger born of tense and uncomfortable interactions, but there's no resolution. The show leaves us mid-rehearsal for Chaos in Belleville, unclear of whether the show will go on or be scrapped or the cast replaced or the script edited to tell the deeper and more accurate truth that Willetta wants to tell. There's no resolution. We're left wondering if they have been mirrors for each other or acted as scapegoats. We are left unclear of what growth may yet come for each of them. All we know is that Willetta at least has changed, found her power, her individuality, and also her context. Much like so many aspects of our own lives, there is no neatly tied bow that ends the relationship between the characters or the relationship between the viewer and the performer. And it disallows the audience to walk out self-satisfied. There are only questions, only unanswered, pointed comments on race in America and what it is to be human, to know yourself, and to let yourself be changed. Questions and comments that are as apt today as they were the day Alice Childress wrote those words. While I could observe the real-time responses of the audience around me, I can only speak to my experience of watching this play as a white woman of privilege in 2021. Watching this show, being offered a window into an industry that is not mine, and a life experience that is not mine, being offered no resolution, no catharsis, it was hard. Something of a new experience, to be honest. Perhaps we are used to resolution. We Americans tend to prefer it in our entertainment. And this show offers none of the comfort that I personally will often seek out in my usual consumption of media. It offered something so much more. It really is an amazing piece of art with performances that bring down the house, and if you have the opportunity to go, I would really strongly encourage you to do so. But it isn't an easy thing to watch, because it didn't allow an Aristotelian identification, separation, and resolution. Nor did it offer an easy ritual of scapegoating. Neither was really true. Instead, it offered an actual invitation into depth and change. And I am left still considering just who and what acts as a mirror and who and what allows us to walk away soothed. Were the white characters in the show and my fellow white audience members whose reactions I observed mirrors for me, or a form of scapegoat? Was my own reaction born out of some fragility or a true vulnerable determination to see myself clearly in time and space? I don't have answers, only the clarity that the show, through its depictions of interactions and relationship, demands that we come into greater knowledge of ourselves and this world. Not too long ago, I shared with you in an e-blast that I often determine the loose frame of our year of services over the summer. I spend time during my study leave considering the grand arc of our congregational year, plotting the monthly themes and considering how the picture will hang together, mindful of holidays and congregational milestones. While I bristle at the idea that what we do on Sundays here together is a performance, there is a great deal of planning that goes into the creation of not only an individual service, but also the larger experience of participating week after week in these moments we share. I work as an individual, and then we work the whole team to create something that we hope will help you deepen your understanding of yourself, that we hope will help you move out of this space or away from your Zoom screen with new realizations about who you are and your place in this world. Our deep hope is that you will be changed through this time together, changed for the better. And that doesn't happen from always engaging in resolution or in comfort and ease. Rather, it happens from creating a place where the vulnerable exploration of yourself is possible and safe, where you are encouraged to ask yourself hard questions, to seek the reflection of companions along the journey as you uncover who you are. It happens when we push ourselves from a grounded place to listen deeply, be present in this moment, observe the world around us, and to grasp at understanding our context. Again, in that poem, Otwama tells us that what we need to do is to remember to talk to ourselves between those parties, the ones where someone pays us attention and the one where no one does. He reminds us that we need to listen to the story we are telling ourselves about ourselves, and to listen for the deeper one, the more true one, the one we sometimes dismiss. He reminds us that resolution is never complete, and we will move in and out of days and decades when we feel like a stranger in our own being. But still and always, we will belong to ourselves and to this place and time in which we have our appointment to be. There's no resolution, only movement forward, the possibility of self-knowledge, the possibility of change, and the value of discomfort. The work of knowing ourselves as fiercely independent individuals whose lives matter deeply, and as tiny specks on a mote of dust hurtling through space at the far reaches of time. The work of knowing ourselves and holding those two truths is not easy work. And of late, I have been more deeply aware than ever before that knowing ourselves is made easier by having companions in that self-discovery who can help us discern what is true and what is false about ourselves and about the world. Religious experience, theater, intimacy, relationship, all of these provide mirrors, provide scapegoats. Our work is to open ourselves to the discernment and the change, and to stop pretending that knowing ourselves can be done in solitude. Because though we come into and leave this world alone, for the time we live on this earth, we are never really alone. We are individuals, but we play in an ensemble cast, and the people and experiences we invite into our journey will help determine what we become. May we have the courage to know ourselves as honestly as possible through the cultivation of relationships and the seeking out of experiences that hold a mirror to reflect the truth, helping us to grow and change as we continue on our journey. So may it be.